Hey everyone, welcome to day 5 of the Tour de Fleece. Now, I decided to do a little bit of a talking heads video for today, mainly because I'm off other work on Tuesdays, so I basically just work for myself on Tuesdays. So I wanted to kind of shake things up and do something that I've been wanting to do but not really had time to do. As you saw earlier in day 4, basically, I began spinning this Gulf Coast native, and I bought this when I was in Georgia, and they had a little knitting store not far. I think it was actually walking distance from where I was staying with family, and so I basically bought all that they had. I think I left a couple of balls just in case there was another tourist like me who happened to be a spinner and wanted to take some home, because it's actually kind of difficult to find, and I certainly wasn't going to find it in the UK. So yeah, I basically bought it, brought it back, and it sat in my storage for a very long time, mainly because I was in the States pre-pandemic, but only just. I was in the States from, I think, early March until right when the lockdowns in the UK started. So when I got back, I went straight into lockdown with my partner, and I had left all of my thesis stuff in my office. So I was going through a whole load of stress and anxiety because I had to write a thesis and didn't have things, so I couldn't actually write it. So this kind of was forgotten about, and then I obviously got wrapped up with all of my thesis submission and doing the Viva and then looking for work. So I've been trying to get back to this, but I've always been prioritizing other stuff instead. So yes, in true me fashion, I always have a huge backlog of things that I'm kind of in the middle of doing but haven't had time to complete. So yeah, this is one of those things that I've been wanting to do but haven't been able to get back to. So this, I had 278 grams, which works out to be about 93 grams or thereabouts per bobbin. So I wanted to make a traditional 3-ply with this. I don't know why, but I've recently been wanting to do more of these traditional 3-ply, but I don't know why, but I've been really interested in making traditional 3-plies, but I wanted to give you a little bit more information about why I'm doing it in particular for this spin. I will be going more in depth in a Fiber Talk episode with Gulf Coast Native, but one of the things that was written in the Fleece and Fiber source book was the fact that Gulf Coast Native can be quite variable in terms of micron count from fleece to fleece. So when I was going through this container of wool, I wasn't really paying too close attention to the differences of each of the little balls of roving I was picking up. But then I started getting it prepared for dyeing, and then I noticed that there were some significant textural differences, which, you know, with a breed that isn't specifically marketed more globally as a wool to use for lots of commercial industry, it's going to have that variable texture micron count. So I was prepared for that, but it kind of created some issue because now I need to figure out how best to spin it. As you can see here, I've dyed it as a roving, and I really love the color variation, and sometimes, depending on, I tried to kind of lay it out into the dye container so that I would get more consistent colors, but when you have wool packed next to each other and when you sort of do this kind of chaining effect, it sort of serves as a natural resist. So if you don't move the dye around a whole lot and there's more dye in one spot than another, that color tends to be more saturated. So I was fine with that. I did that deliberately, but some bits are more pronounced than others. So if I compare that to this end bit, which is predominantly kind of red with a little bit of brown tones in it, I wanted to maintain this variation a little bit, and the best way I thought to do that was rather than card all of the wool that I had, so that I was taking bits that were softer and carding it with bits that were a little bit more coarse. My plan is to do a traditional 3-ply so that I can maintain some of these colors in the singles. But because this particular bit is a lot softer than some other bits, my thinking is if I have one ply that might be slightly more coarse, but the other 2 plies are a little softer, particularly in that spot, then overall I'll have a pretty soft yarn and I don't have to sacrifice this lovely color variation. One of the things that I love about this particular challenge is because you're focusing predominantly on the spinning aspects, there's a lot of opportunity to kind of think and imagine and fantasize about what your finished project's going to be. And I know that in my day 0 episode, I was talking about what to do with this cormo, but as I got to spinning more of this Gulf Coast native, I thought that would actually make a really lovely blanket in combination. So cormo is dramatically different in terms of its micron count, and it's a lot fluffier than the Gulf Coast native is going to be. So the yarn that I spin with this is going to be slightly more dense. This one is going to be a little bit more poofy. But I think if you were to imagine doing alternating warp and weft with these 2 wools, it's pretty much spun the same, it would actually make a really lovely combination, and it would do a couple of other things. So for example, cormo, like merino, is more likely to pill, and having used some of this Gulf Coast native so far, I don't think it's going to pill quite so much. But there are lots of different ways that you can combine fibers together into a project. One is at the initial stage before you actually spin, but another way to do that is when you're doing your project. So what I think I'm going to do is soften this by adding this into the same project. So if I have some warps with this and warps with this, then the overall blanket is actually going to be softer than it might be otherwise, but I'm not sacrificing any of the qualities that this wool has, which I will get into in the Fiber Talk episode, I promise, because there's actually something a little bit unexpected from this wool. But you also get the softness that this wool has, and because these together are very similar in color, I'm not gonna get anything that's too garish, and I have very similar quantities. So I did find the paper that came with my cormo. It's about 7 ounces, so it's just a little less than this Gulf Coast native. So I could actually get a quite sizable blanket. I was thinking originally that I might just get a lap blanket, but this actually might cover my entire body, which is always a good thing in my book. And it came from Apple Rose Farm. I'm not sure if they're still in business, but I did find them on Etsy years ago. And this cormo, some of it I dyed a different color, and I think it was actually this one. So there's 2 slightly different color batches. So this part in my left hand, this was dyed from white, and this one that's in my right hand, this one was over dyed. I had it in sort of like this bruised banana color, which I don't know why I was really obsessed with this kind of dingy pale yellow all those years ago, but I decided whatever project I had selected this for, I was just going to do something else. So I over dyed it. So I dyed these together at the same time, but because this one was already dyed yellow, it's actually slightly different colorway. So yes, there's a lot of challenges that I presented here, but when you are at the wheel and you're doing a lot of spinning, you get an opportunity to think about what your project's going to be. And normally I don't give myself this opportunity to really plan. Normally what I'm doing is I'm creating yarn for the shop. So, putting up hand spun, or I am spinning something for a Fiber Talk episode. But very rarely am I doing things for myself. But I do try to have about one project on the wheel for myself. Sometimes it's just, I wanted to spin this, but I have no idea what I'm going to make with it. And other times, like my Crafty New Year's resolution, I have a precise goal that I'm going towards. So, yeah, because I'm predominantly spinning for me for the Tour de Fleece, I've actually had a really wonderful opportunity to think more broadly about how I want this finished project to go. And so I think combining this Cormo with the Gulf Coast Native is going to be a really lovely woven project, and it'll probably take a while. But when it's done, it will be soft, it will be beautiful, and like all my other blankets, I use them a ton. Now, with all my videos, I am going to give you a little bit of footage of me spinning and some other little bits about my day. So I hope you enjoy watching that, and I will see you tomorrow in day 6. Bye!